All right, this is the 2023 Librarian Training with Alchemer, smaller group today. Welcome, everyone. First, before we start, Mike, these are the gems of the gems, the people that literally serve, volunteer their time, and are not doing this of their own free will. They're doing this because they serve other people, and it's an amazing, amazing good group that we have here. So we have givers and we have takers, and I love the givers of AOS that think about others. So anyway, got a good group today. Not that the others aren't great too, but these are the people that stand up and said, I'll serve and help. All right. I'll make you a co-host.
All right. Thank you, Jake. And I know this is extra, so thank you for attending. And I'll try to make it valuable for you. We're going to do a little bit more advanced things, but I appreciate your time and being willing to show up and to learn. So that's great. So the overall goal for the training today is I wanted to cover, actually, I'll start sharing instead of just talking. So this is a big goal today, is URL variables and how to use them. And this gets into the realm of the internet in general versus a specific Alchemer feature or functionality. So it's blending a capability that's it almost runs the internet and the web. There's a lot of things that are happening with URL variables and lots of capabilities. And what I want to show you is how to use them, this kind of general term or general concept of URL variables, and using that power into our platform in surveys. So I have a deck prepared and I'm going to show you from step one what a URL variable is and going through kind of the big picture of what it is, and then how do you use it in Alchemer. So that's a big kind of goal for today. And then some of the other ones I really want to cover, and there's quite a few here in this checklist, but text and translations I definitely want to cover. I think that's a big one. And it's very helpful to be able to know how to do that, translate a survey into a different language. And then I want to show you some options with quotas that might be useful for you. And I'll try to get some of these other ones involved a little bit more. But these are the ones I definitely want to cover for sure as far as the agenda. Hopefully that's good. And Jake, thank you for the question and relaying it to me. And I'll cover the question about library and that who has access and how to kind of get that aggregate data from a library question as kind of a step one for today. But if this agenda, if there's anything else you'd like me to cover during today, open to a flexible agenda.
There was one thing, and maybe Elizabeth already brought it up, but I would love the ability for each state, like Taylor or Elizabeth, if we don't need to make them an admin, if we could just create a library permission, and that way Carrie or Elizabeth could just say, hey, this is my designated librarian, and maybe, if we could have, I'm noticing states are wanting multiple librarians instead of just one. And you mentioned that it was a permission within that, right? We can make them.
Yes, so I can cover that. And that starts from the admin level and creating a custom role. And I can cover this fairly quickly. And then this custom role, you'll name it librarian and then assign it, basically kind of overriding the default editor role for all the other users. And then they would have that permission to go into the global questions, the question library, to have the power to manage it.
And I foresee, and I don't know if Dr. Jolly wants to be a librarian, but there's many states that it's like, hey, this person is a librarian and we don't need to make them an admin. So that'd be great. I don't know if that's just one example. I'm like, why wouldn't we make her or give her access to that if she wanted it,
Yes, and that's the great thing about it. I really like the flexibility of it. In the past, you had to pay for another admin license seat to have that power. So this is kind of a hybrid to open it up to other non-admin users. So I can show that quickly too.
Okay.
Okay, great. Let me transition to well, we should probably check those items off the list first. So the question about access to the data from a linked library question is only for admin,
Okay.
or the librarian has a special role, right? That's assigned, which I'll cover next. So just as an example, so I'm going into the research library and global questions, and I'll just pick, let me see, I have quite a few demos here, but let me see if I can find one that has different surveys. Okay, this one. So I have this question that is in the library. And this is something that all the users on the account, they don't have to be admin users. They don't have to be the special library role. They can pull this into a question. And this will be housed in that question, in that survey. And repeat this. So this one question could be in 100 different surveys. And then this data starts to flow from all these different surveys into this question that's linked in the library. And then it's like, okay, let's see how it's coming together just for this one question, because it's in all these different surveys. Let's get the data just for this one particular question. So to do that, you go to results, and then it looks very similar to our results and exports kind of design from the survey. So let's see, I'm not sure if this has the latest data. Gosh, I don't think I have responses, but the concept is the same. So if I go to reports, and you'll see this is where it looks confusing. It's like, gosh, just looks like I'm getting data from the survey, but this is this question. So when I open it up, you'll have the data from this question across all of the surveys. And the capabilities here, so if I go to filter and I go the survey, so this will be, actually, this is such a poor demo, I apologize. Let me pick one that has something. Murphy's Law is in effect with my selection today. Let me see if I can get another one. Demo. Guess begin. This might be better. Let's see if I have some data here. Okay, I have some here. Great. So these are our results, individual responses from this MPS question, 0 to 10, how likely would you recommend us? And you'll see this data changes. So here's survey ID, ends in 4.3. And then if I go down, it's like, oh, that's in survey ID 7.1. So it's in a different survey, right? So now I go to results and reports, and I'm generating a report just for that question that's in different surveys, right? So here's 13 responses. And then the filtering capability is by the survey. So I have this question in these 3 different surveys. And then I could filter and just run a report for one survey, for example. Or I like having this aggregate across everything. And I think the power for this is, and obviously you have your use cases, but some of these general, global type of demographic questions like age, income, gender, some of those just very broad type of questions. It's really good to have this aggregate lens, but obviously you have your own use case for something that could be applicable across multiple surveys. And then here's where you can see where they're housed in surveys. So this is the capability of the aggregate reporting off of that one particular linked library element, usually a question. So that's how you access it and view it. Okay. All right. If there's no questions, I'll try to just pause to make sure. Um, I'll go into like how to set this up. This is kind of an admin thing, but essentially it's a user management piece. So this is for admins, the account, user management, and then here's a user. So I have the secondary user named Joe. He's not the admin. This is the dashboard. This star signifies admin. That's me here. But if I go to Joe and here's the kind of initial setup, username, email, and their license level. But if I go to teams and projects, there's certain teams. Okay. So I have Joe on the sales team
Mhm.
assigned, and that restricts his access to certain surveys housed by team. But
Right.
I have this as a library. He's a librarian role. Everyone usually, typically,
Editor, yeah.
editor, they have control to do everything, but they don't have library access. So this is a custom role that was added in and built to be accessible, to be selected. And to do that, it's under roles.
Okay.
And I'm going to add, I already have it, but I'm going to go through the process again. So I'm going to add a role, and this will be, library 2. And this person will have access to the library permissions. This is where the work is really done.
Okay.
And essentially, you're checking everything. It's like the editor where you do want to have everything checked off. I wish we had a button that just select all, but the real work is happening here where it's create and modify question library elements.
I see.
So,
Okay.
so now when you save this, then, and I didn't go through and check everything, but you would. So they have the same permissions as an editor with the extra layer of the library access. Then this is one of the options that, and I'll just show you kind of a completed version of this. So it's just checked here. And then that role is something that you would assign to that user specifically and say, you're not an editor anymore. You are a library, and naming conventions are good. Just have that available and you click that, boom. And then when, like if I went through the whole flow and I assigned that to Joe, I could transition to a demo of Joe's dashboard and he would be able to click and go into the library and edit and change library elements. He could also do that reporting and analysis off of those aggregated data from across multiple surveys. So
Right. And that's not done at the team level, that's done on the user level. I see. Okay. Team project. So it'd be the profile. No, no, no. I do go into teams, you're saying.
yeah, so step one is it's a little tricky with the UX. So step one is let's build this custom role. So we're
Okay.
going to add this custom role. Then I'm going to go into users, and here's Joe. And I
Okay.
think let me see if there's a way I could do this. If I click here for Joe, then I could. That's team assignment.
Okay.
I might have to do it through here. So I'm going to go click into Joe.
Mm.
And here, there's no real role assignment.
Right.
So it's almost like, where do I assign it? So I have to go to teams and projects. And then in that particular team, if there hasn't been any changes, it'll be team
Is
one.
he only going to be the librarian of that team?
I have to double check on that. I believe so. In that team environment, he might be the only one to access it. I would have to double check and see.
I love
It's
the idea of having a team librarian, but I'm wondering like the national librarian. These are national librarians over all teams.
that, if I gave an answer now, I don't know if I'd be telling
Okay.
you good
You
information.
can
I
get
would
back.
have to kind of validate that to see um, if there's other access points related to that library role for other teams.
Okay.
But let me get back to you on that, Jake, and see if
Okay.
that restricts access to other teams.
If it's not, we can continue to make people admins that are librarians. It's not, I mean, it's more expensive, but if there is a just a library specific role that we can give our board members over their teams, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
I'm speaking for the group, but I'm imagining you guys want it that way, right? More power.
Great. I'll follow up on that one. Okay, so I'm going to pivot from the library to URL variables. So this is a deck, and I'm going to share this right now. I'll follow up, and I do have more information and follow-up assets from the last training that I do need to send to you, Jake and Elizabeth, which I will do. This is another thing I will send as an asset. But what I'm going to be sharing with you is just kind of the story of a URL variable and how it interacts with our platform. So I'm going to put this in the chat right now. Let me just get the link to make sure it's accessible to everybody. And view, create, by, copy, and let's see if I can expand this. Sorry, I'm gonna have to stop screen sharing for a second to get the chat. Okay, so let me know if that isn't accessible for you. Okay, so let's go through the deck here. So this is just an introduction to what it is. So just my personal story. When I started working in Alchemer, I was in customer support, and I had no idea about any of this, and I felt like it was a foreign language. And I remember getting calls from customers talking about it, and I was just like, wow, I really can't help you. It was not a good feeling, and I always had to kind of take really good notes and talk to a colleague who had more experience. So I understand this feeling of like, gosh, what is it, and how can I use it type of thing. So I'm hoping to combat that with this deck. So the foundation is the URL, and the URL is just an address on the web, and it's a location, just like a street address. This is where your street address is. This is where you live. Same thing on the internet. It's a location, and this is where you are, your website, right? So that's the foundation of this. So now is, what is a URL variable? And so it's essentially what happens whenever you see a question mark after the foundational URL. When you see a question mark, you know that there's a URL variable. That's the key thing. Where is that question mark? Okay. And I have more slides of this to go into more detail, but essentially, right after the question mark, there is a category or a bucket, and it's called a key or a variable. And we use the term variable in Alchemer, but on the internet, you'll see the term key also. So they're interchangeable. So that's a category. It's really not the thing you're interested in per se. What's after the equal sign is the real value, is the thing. Okay. And then this is called a one parameter, and it's a variable with a value. So that's one set of data. And then if there's a second one, it always starts with an ampersand. So this is very formulaic, almost like a math formula. There's a question mark. Here's your first pair. Then there's an ampersand, and there's another pair. And if it continues on, it'll be an ampersand, ampersand, ampersand. So that is very, like, this formula has to be correct. Question mark, ampersand, ampersand. Okay. So now, so the concept is, so when there's a question mark, right after the question mark is the category, right? That you're trying to associate data with, the value. So in this example, it's, I'm concerned about color, but the value that came through with this variable is blue. Right? So here's some other examples of that is car. Well, what is the value? Oh, it could be any of these car brands. Food. well, what food are you interested in? What is it we're thinking of? Could be anything. Same thing with an ID number. So, like in an organization or, people get assigned numbers. So which ID number? So this is really the thing that we're really capturing. We want to think about is the value in this key or variable is something we create, we define, and we can make it anything, but we know what it is. And it's a place to associate data at a higher level. It's a category that we are kind of defining. Okay, so now how do customers use URL variables in Alchemy? This one I will not go into today. It's in the deck. This is advanced level 3, and it's higher level where we're going to take data that's being collected in Alchemer in the survey. A respondent answers a question a certain way. What is your age? I'm 57. That value that they selected in that question, we're going to take that 57 and we're going to send it and redirect that value to another website, another place on the web. And that's really higher level. What we're going to focus on is pre-populating existing data. So you have this data that you know about someone that is going to click on the link to take the survey. We want to associate a value with that one person. When they click on that link to the survey, we want to have a value on that link to the survey to bring into the survey. So that's a really classic use case for it. Okay, so let's go through the steps to do this. Okay, so how do I set up a survey to capture a URL variable? So these slides I'm going to do live. I'm going to transition to actually show this. So there'll be a little repetition there. So essentially is we need a merge code to tell the system to look for the URL, and the key in this example is ID. We want to get the data that's after the equal sign, ID equals whatever number. Let's pull that into the survey. And in this example, it's being captured in a hidden value action, not shown to the respondent. We want it to be there for the data analysis phase in the results. We just want to grab that value behind the scenes. This one, we might want to display it. So in this example, we want to show the data that we have for that particular respondent and display it live. It's there, just like a merge code does in our survey build. Okay. So now we're going to set this up. So this is the question. Is this your current work ID or radio button question? Yes, no. And we go to merge codes. And then this opens up, and then we click about the respondent, URL variable, value that is passed in through the URL query string. And these terms that I'm using that are just like, what is a query string? At the end of this deck, which I'll show you, I have a glossary of all these terms with visual displays of what they represent. Okay. And that's something I just got lost in with all these kind of technical terms. You must enter the key name to match what was passed over. So there's the key, but it's variable, same, right? Okay, that's that category or bucket. Then this gets placed in when you click, it's a template. And I recommend doing it because even if you make a typo or you get rid of the quotation mark or the bracket, it won't work. It has to be perfect. So it's nice to have this template to start from. This is XXX, which is just meaningless. Then you replace it with your key or variable, your bucket or category that is what you want or what you are assigning. So in this example, it's ID. Okay. And then, and this is very manual and step at a time, is in this demonstration. So I go to the share tab and I am taking the primary link the foundational URL, the place on the web, the address, as step one. And then I am appending on question mark ID equals whatever number it is, 22 in this example. Okay. Here's a link to our documentation. So you can append these URL variables on to a custom tracking link. So it's not just for the main primary link. So you can, there's a resource to kind of go down that path also. Then I'm going to talk more about this, and this was a source of confusion for me too, is, well, where are we getting this data? And what if it's different for different people? This ID number, like this person who clicks on it could be ID 44. I'll talk about that in a second, but let me go through kind of the basic flow of this for this just one example of ID 22. So then this is what gets shared out. And the whole thing, including the question mark ID equals 22. Then when the respondent clicks on the link to take the survey, the merge code is activated. This merge code says, please look for the URL in the URL that has the key or variable ID, and whatever is after the equal sign, please display it or populate it. And in this example, that's what happened. They clicked on the survey link. This merge code said, hey, great, let's grab that 22. We display it. And it's also being captured. This is the kind of respondent view behind the scenes in the hidden value, because that merge code is in the hidden value action also. Okay. So now I think I have a GIF, and I'm going to do this live in real time, but just to show you this kind of flow. And that's the hard part about GIFs. We don't know where we jump in. So here is kind of near the end. So I'm copying the URL foundation. And I'm putting on question mark ID equals 22. This gets distributed to the person. They click on it. It opens up the survey. And then you'll see it comes in. And now we've got the data of that. And typically, you know, a classic use case is just, let's get it and put it in the hidden value so we have it. But this is where it's housed, it's placed in there, and then we go to share, right? Okay, so now getting into where can we access this in the results phase? So by default in the individual response data, if you click on this ID number 4 and go to the details tab, if there is a URL variable appended onto the link of the survey, question mark ID equals 22, we parse that out and display it here. So it's there. We'll grab it automatically. You don't have to do anything. We're going to have that available. Okay. Then in the export, if you choose to look at the data in that fashion, then when you click that first phase, it's like, hey, generate an export, you get presented with this window. There's the option. Yes, I would like to have that come through in my export. And it will just be a column. In this example, I just have one. And if you have multiple, it would be another column. So all that data comes through. And in our standard report, you can bring it in also. So if you go to results and standard report, it won't show up by default. But under the insert selection, you'll see an option URL. Then you kind of work your way through the steps. And this is the same thing for hidden value action. Then you click add that question in, and now we have that data from the URL variable. And in a, I keep mentioning classic use case, this is captured typically in the hidden value on the first page, not displayed to a respondent, but now we want to look at it. Let's go into the standard report and let's pull this through. And you'll see that data to be accessible for reporting purposes. Another great benefit of it is you can use it to drive logic. So this is definitely advanced, a logic condition, but I'll just go through the steps in this GIF. It's like, what's the condition? It's not a question. It's URL variable. What is the category or name? In this example, it's region, is exactly equal to whatever. When that URL variable question mark region equals Southwest, let's display a question to this respondent because it's unique to them, which we've identified them as having that region in the URL variable in the link that's appended on for the survey. Okay, so you can drive logic off this. Another option with this is, so this is going directly to the URL variable to make that a condition. You could also click what's the condition. If you grab that value in a hidden value on the first page, you can drive logic on the following pages or questions based off the hidden value action. So it's kind of, pick how you want to do it. But it's really common for people just to grab it into the first page of the survey in a hidden value, and then you can use that hidden value to drive logic. So it's kind of an extra step, but it's an option. So that's the first part is let's get data to come into the survey. The rest of the slide covers how to pass information on. So it's operating in reverse, where you share out the link, they take the survey, and then there's some values being created because they're answering questions. Then we have a value, we've created a value about this respondent. Now let's send it over and append it on to this other site, this other place on the web. And we're going to tell the system to append it on to the link and send it out. So this is why it's a little bit more advanced, which I don't want to kind of overwhelm you at this point, but it's here to show you the steps to do that. If you are inclined, or if you have the kind of technical know-how in your team to potentially use it. And then, as promised, here's the last two slides with the definitions. So, all the things I was talking about, query string, fields to pass, and then someone I used to work with in support suggested this, and I think it's great because it really breaks it down, really specifically and showing it holistically. And it's like, here's a query string. So it's not just one parameter. There's ampersand, here's another one, ampersand, another one. So there's quite a bit of data associated that we're pulling through. So parameters are the key value pair. So here's the key, the variable, and there's the value. So that's one parameter, 2, 3, 4. And then the keys or fields is this. So the name that's getting passed over that value. So that's just a resource to kind of have. And I know from personal experience, this is the first time, I know this is just like information overload. The deck is here, and kind of save it, and maybe in 3 months it could be like, oh gosh, let me play with this. This could be, I could see how this could be beneficial for us. Okay, so going back to the question that I left hanging about that idea of, let me go back and show you where I asked that question, is here. So how do I do this? Or what happens if it's different for each person? So I want to try to explain that a little bit more. So typically, and this is going into other applications. So you could, and this is just going through experiences I've had customer support or with other customers, how they manage this. So you could create a spreadsheet and imagine you have this list of people in your organization you're sending it out to. So you have, Sam, Joe, Judy, Sally, going down. And then the next column over, you have survey link, the URL. Then it's like, hey, I know Sally, her ID is 23. I know Joe's ID is 24. You create this kind of massive spreadsheet. And then that's something you could individually send out to, by email, I know this email is going to Joe, and I'm just going to copy this link I created just for Joe. His ID is 22. The next email, I will grab it from the sheet. I'm going to grab Sally's, whose ID is 23. And you're kind of creating these custom links that's specific just to that particular person. Then they click on the link, boom, we got that value to come in. We know it's associated with that person. That's one example. Another one is getting more advanced with other tools that you might use. And this is, I'm making big assumptions, and I don't know if this is something that you have or use, but like an email campaign tool where like a MailChimp or a HubSpot or something where you do have a contact list, or like a customer relationship manager type of tool where these records exist in a database essentially. And there's ways to manipulate the invitation email that gets sent out, that you're sending out through kind of these email campaign tools, where you can use merge codes to pull data dynamically. So it's not just a fixed number like 22, it'll be ID equals merge code in that platform that's going to dynamically pull the contact record email, or any not the email specifically, but the data associated with that contact. So then it becomes a dynamic value associated on the end, the link that's matched up with that particular contact that you're sending an email to take the survey. And then that value gets pulled through into the survey. Any questions at this point? I was going to transition to kind of show it live, how it works. But any questions at this point about URL variables? Okay, so now let me build this out in a survey, and I'll try to do what was demoed in the exact actual deck. So now I'll create a new survey, and URL variable demo. Okay, so now I'll have I'll just do a question like I did. It was like this: is this your ID? Question mark. And yes, no. And I just want to show you one functionality, and I think I did this under layout last week. If most people's ID is going to be the same, I don't even want them to engage with this question. So I'm going to go to layout, and I'm going to go to default answer, and I'm going to say yes. And this is exactly the same text, has to match perfectly. Great. I think it's going to be yes. Okay. So now I'll put in a hidden value action below, and most use cases, hidden values are put on the first page to grab data. So I'm adding it in, and I'll call this HVA shorthand, and this is going to be ID number. It's good to have a naming convention. Select a merge code. So now I'm going to generate this merge code to grab that data ID. So pages and questions, nope. Email, no, this is not coming from an email campaign. We could grab data from an email campaign. We upload the contact information, send it through Alchemer. We can associate data, first name, last name, department, all that. But that's different than this. This is from the URL. So I'll click about the respondent, URL variable, insert. There's the template. Then I'm careful what I'm doing here so I don't mess up the quotation marks. And I'll put ID. Best practice is the key or variable is to be lowercase. It doesn't have to be, but it's recommended to keep it lowercase. And these are almost like a little code. Like you don't have to make it like identification number. Like it's really nice to have just these really short, focused text, like it's a key to what you're doing. So it's not super long in that URL variable query string. So now I've grabbed it. Now I'm going to copy this and save. So now it's going to capture there. And now just for demo purposes, I want to I could go through the same steps here, repeat, but I have it here. So I'm just going to copy it and place it there too. Okay. So now I'm set up for success with this URL variable. And let's do it. So I'm going to go to share and I'm grabbing the link. So I'm going to copy this and then I'm placing it here. And this is, one at a time kind of manual thing that I'm doing just for demo purposes. But step one, question mark. That's like the foundation. You have to have that. What's the key or variable is ID. Could be anything, right? Equals 468. This link is what I will copy and distribute. I could hyperlink it, however you distribute it, but I need that variable appended on. The respondent gets the link. Hey, take our survey. They click the link, and then this is pulled through. So there's 468. And the merge code said, please, whatever's after ID, please pull in that value that's appended on there. Great. The default answer is yes. I look through it and say, yeah, that's my ID. I don't have to engage with the survey or that question. The hidden value that is behind the scenes also grab that 468. I'll submit this as a live response just to show you how the data came through. And then let's see if it came through quickly enough. A little slow at the moment. I'll come back. We'll look at that data. I wanted to show you the other example of using logic to drive something off of the URL. So I'm going to add a page, and I'm just going to put a text media element saying, hey, this is page 2, just to have something there to display. I want this to be shown based off a URL variable, the value. So one method is, so I'm going to do the whole page. So I could do it for the question too, but I'm editing, going to logic for the page. What's the condition? So here's 2 methods. One is I'm going to go directly to the URL variable. Variable name, in this example, it's ID, is exactly equal to whatever it is. So in this example, if it's 468, let's show it to this person. Great. So that's one example. Here's a second example. And I mentioned this, use the hidden value action because you grab that data. Let's just use that as a source of logic. So here's a second page, and I'll make this conditional on the hidden value action. This is page 3. And then logic, and I'll go here. What's the condition? Hidden value action is exactly equal to, and has to be exactly what's after that equal sign, 468. Okay. And now I've got logic driven off that URL variable using the URL variable here or the hidden value action, which is essentially the same thing because I captured it behind the scenes. So let's go to the results. Should be there by now, which it is. I'm going to customize this grid to display the hidden value action. And that's why it's good to have this naming convention. It's really easy to forget this. And it's like, gosh, what was that? Was that a question or what? So that's why I always try to put hidden value action, HVA. And then now we grabbed it here. That value came through in that hidden value action. And if I go into the results, I can see it in the data. It got popped in to show the respondent, and it also got popped into the hidden value action behind the scenes. And then here's our details. And here is this is the referrer, which is basically what was the link that this person clicked on to take our survey? This was it. And then we parse out the ID equals 468. And I've gone into customers' accounts and looking at individual responses. And there's 10 of these. Like you can put on, and this has come up, like how many, parameters can you add on? And it's like, I don't know if there's a limit. You can put quite a bit. But these, obviously these get pretty lengthy, but if it's hyperlinked, it's not really displayed to the respondent. They don't really know it's there, essentially, unless they're kind of savvy and they look at the address bar at the top. But that's the data that's coming through. And we got it, right? And then that ability, just to show you kind of in the reports, I don't have a lot of data associated with this, but just to go through that path, I'm going to insert, and then I'll put in, URL. Where is it? I could just go directly to the URL variable ID. This example, I'll just do the hidden value, add the question, and now I've got that data from the URL variable pulled through and shown.
Hey, Mike, Lindsay had a
Yeah.
question.
Oh, sure.
She said, what if it is not your ID? For example, my ID is 22, but the survey I received has $ID equals 44 in the URL. What happens if I mark no? Would we have to set up logic to tell it what to do next?
Oh, great question. So now let's just go through this. So here would be, yes, exactly. So confirmation, all is good, move on, no interaction by the respondent. They click no, then it would be, what is your current ID? And then I would make this logic based. If they answer no, then they go through it and it would look like this, that ID would come through. That's interesting why that came through in the preview. Check that out. But they're like, oh yes, they move on. Or they say no, then this gets updated. And running all the way with this is then at the bottom of the survey, we could redirect that value and send it somewhere else. We could, hey, we just got updated. This is the new ID. We could send it over to another website to grab. But in a more simplistic use case, it would be something you just look through in the data and the results and say, oh, you go through the column of the export and everything's good, 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 good. And all of a sudden you see a jog. And for the no people, there'll be another column for this question too. And it's like, hey, we need to update these 5 people who said no. You would get that data. So, okay. Did that answer the question?
Okay. Yes, it did. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I know we have a little bit of time left. I was going to cover some of those topics on the other agenda items like text and translations and quotas, unless there's any more questions on this URL variables. I think the big goal was I want to introduce it to you, I want to expose you to it, and potentially could be really valuable down the road. And our customers use it quite a bit. And just to give you a sense of, this is not an edge use case from the majority of Alchemer customers. It's amazing how many customer surveys I go into that I see a hidden value grabbing a URL. It's amazing. So it's used quite a bit. And just to show you, so I want to just go through this scenario. So I am a skier. I really love to ski. It's one of the reasons I moved to Colorado. So now I'm going to search for a pair of skis, right? So I am trying to get tracked on purpose. Let's see what happens if I get it. Oh, it happened before. Do you see this? So I searched for vocal. Look in this URL, question mark, question equals vocal. Another one, OQ. I don't know what that is. This is all secret, right? AQS equals Chrome. So they know where I am searching on which browser. Source ID equals Chrome. I equals UTF-8. They just tracked me. You know how you get, it's almost creepy. Like you're searching for something on the web to buy. And then like a month later, they throw an ad up on your screen. So how'd they know I was searching for, those fuzzy slippers? And it's like, oh, this is why. So this is all done with URL variables and a query string. Boop, on this computer, they got me. And if I search for something else, I'm going to see an ad for vocal skis. So just to show you like an example in real life of how the internet is kind of run, especially marketing and retargeting you is all based off this. They have values about me. Because I clicked on this computer, they're going to serve it up to me again, right? This information. So just want to show you a real example. Okay. The other thing I want to show is text and translations and quotas. Let me do quotas first. So I wanted to show just one quick example, kind of advanced type of quota. And this is time slots. This could be beneficial to you. So let's say I just have a radio button question. Hey, sign up. And, Monday, 8 a.m. Monday, 2 p.m. Wednesday, you get the idea, 9 p.m. So you have these time slots and you're trying to get people to sign up for an online class or in person. Like there's just a way, you just want to manage it in Outlook and you can. So now I only can allow one person on Monday. Maybe it's an interview. On Wednesday, it's a class and I can allow 10 people. Okay, let's set that up. So on Monday at 8 a.m., I'm going to go to the pencil and go to quotas. And I can only allow one person to sign up for this on Monday. That person clicks the link, they see the first question, they click Monday, they go through the survey, great. The second person who clicks on the link, Monday will disappear because the quota said one. Now, the other ones, I can set a quota like, oh, for Wednesday, it's a class. And I can, the maximum number of people who can sign up for this class is 8, right? So this is more advanced quota, answer option quota. And if I go to the share tab, I'll just run through the demo to show you exactly how it works. So there's one person allowed for Monday, interview, great, submit. Then I come back in and I'm the second person. I don't have that option anymore because the quota said we can only take one. Then if I did Wednesday, I could go through 8 times and then it'll disappear for the 9th person. But just want to show you kind of quick example of an answer option quota that could be beneficial for scheduling events or anything like that. So now translation. So I'm going to do a quick translation. This is one of our tools. And just as a quick overview of these tools and options, I think some things are pretty beneficial. One is duplicate protection. So maybe you don't want people to take it twice. So by default, this link that you send out for a survey, if you don't touch anything, will allow people to click it again and take it twice. So maybe you would like to restrict access to this so it's just once. We offer 2 methods here. So IP-based is like geolocation. This one is the computer, the cache on that particular device. Our documentation covers 2. There's pluses and minuses with both. They're not foolproof methods. So there's still ways people can get around this, but it's at least a step 1. The most foolproof way is to use our email campaign tool. And when you create this email campaign, we make a unique link for each person. In that email invite to take the survey, it's for that particular person. We append on a URL variable called SGUID. It used to be called Survey Gizmo. That's a unique identifier that we assign to that particular person, which has built-in duplicate protection. So if they take the survey and they click on the link from an email invite from our email campaign tool, they finish the survey. If they click on the link again after they've completed it, it will say, you've already done it. That's our most foolproof way to have duplicate protection. Okay. Other ones, I'm going to cover text and translations. This is overall quotas. Maybe you want to limit the number. I don't know if this is applicable or not, but you can restrict overall. I only want 100 respondents. So you can kind of, that 101st person will get a message saying, hey, this survey's closed. Other ones are this download survey. I think this is nice when you want to maybe share it. We do have that test option where you're collaborating, but this is like a paper version of the survey. So you could download it as a PDF or a Word file, print it out and mark it up. I still like using paper for certain things. This is one example you can use to you could share this out with someone and like, hey, what do you think of the survey? And they could jot down notes on the document itself. But we do offer that capability under the test tab. Invite others to help you test. That's more in the application kind of comment, but we do have that option under the tools. So let's do a quick text and translation to finish up, hopefully on time. So now I want to translate the survey. And just to go back, this survey just has this. This is what I want to translate. So if I go to text and translations, step one is add a translation, pick the language, and it doesn't really matter what it is. Cornish, Spanish, for example. I click add the language. This is kind of the display of this now. So here's the language I'm translating, just to show you the dashboard now. So in tools, text and translations, I have English as a default. I want to leave that alone. I don't want to translate that. That was probably the most common problem I experienced. People just kind of jumped in, didn't read the documentation. I totally understand it. They go into English and they translate the English version, which creates problems. So that's just the foundation. We leave that alone. This is where we do the work in the new language we added. Then I'm going to show the manual way. The most common way is to export a CSV Excel sheet, translate the third column on the right to the text that you want to be displayed, save it on your device and upload it in. That's the kind of bulk way to do it. But just to show you the output here, using manual. So this should say, translate question one, translate the title. So this is, I would just replace the text, and just for testing and demo, I just put Cornish. And then I have to be thoughtful. I also have to do the answer options. Anything that's displayed, I need to translate. So I'll save this. And then the other thing to be mindful of are messages that could display, like the next button or the back button. Oh yeah, I need to translate that too. If there's a toolbar in reports, like these are system generated messages, I have to translate also. Some of these might not show, but if they do, then you go in here and I have to translate this kind of thing. So quote unquote, I've translated this. Now I wanted to give the ability for the respondent to pick the language. Our system will automatically serve up the correct language based on the setting on that person's computer. If their computer is defaulted to be Cornish and this link is displayed to them, it will automatically recognize it and display it in that language. So it's a default setting, which is really nice. But we recommend having the ability for the respondent to decide on that, what language they want to see. So to do that under tools and response settings, there's the first checkbox, survey toolbar, and I'm going to pick language, save. I'll go to share, view, and then this is showing English because my computer says it's defaulted to English. I actually am a native Cornish speaker. I would like to view it. And there's the kind of the change of Cornish is being displayed. And I picked the wrong one because it's not displaying anymore. Cornish was also with that first question with the answer option logic. It's not displaying anymore. But that's kind of a quick summary of text and translations that could be beneficial for your respondents and giving them the option to kind of select which language they want to appear for them. Okay. I know I went over a couple minutes. Any questions at the last minute? I do have to run. Unfortunately, I have another training starting, but I will follow up with our 4 kind of leave behind assets, and I will package this also and provide any more documentation too for our 5. But hopefully you found it beneficial and potentially useful in the future.
Awesome.
Mike, you've given us a lot to think about.
Thanks, Mike. I'm gonna stop recording, but I do have a question for the group. Thanks, Mike, for coming in.
Okay, thank you guys. Bye.
Let's see.